The Mother Song, Chapter 1. Our house, 11 Sycamore Street, Eden Cove. Our home since I was 6, a place of ever-changing family dynamics, a place of refuge, a place of tears, a place of laughter, a place of noise, home. I unlocked the door, threw my keys onto the hall shelf, dumped my bags at the bottom of the stairs, then trudged to the living room and threw myself onto the couch. My arms flapped down beside me as I let out the biggest sigh. The journey from Reading to Eden Cove had taken forever. In reality, it was only 3 or 4 hours, but it felt a lot longer. It was a relief to be home after my worst semester ever. My cuddly, always there for me Grandpa Jack died unexpectedly in the middle of February. Then Reese, my boyfriend of 6 months, decided to break up with me. And to top it off, I failed an exam. I have never failed an exam or a test in my life. Now I have a resit in 2 months. What if I fail that too? I love my building surveying course. Ever since I heard a talk by a building surveyor at my high school's career week, it's all I've wanted to do. The more I learn, the more I know building surveying is my passion. But what if I fail again? Or what if this fail hampers my chances of getting the job I want? Leaning my head back onto the back of the couch, I tried not to sink into the depths of despair. I was grateful for a silent house, especially as our house is rarely quiet. Mum and Joshua were collecting Gran from the hospital. Gran had a hip replacement operation 3 days ago, and Mum insisted she come and stay with us while she recovers. It would be wonderful to have a kindred spirit in this house of madness. Plus, I think Gran could do with the company. It must be hard for her to adjust after Grandpa Jack's death. Sunbeams streamed into the living room, filling the space with brightness and life, clearly not understanding that today was a day for autumn gloom rather than summer rays. I sat up straight, looking around the room. The decor was still the same as it was at Easter, which was unusual for my mother. I looked above the fireplace. If only Mum would update the photos as often as she redecorated. I've no idea why she insists on keeping our first school photos framed on the wall. Mine with my big gappy smile, Rebecca's with her uneven pigtails and bright blue ribbons, and Joshua with his wide, cheesy grin and his eyes squeezed shut. I spoke to Rebecca's picture. I wish you were home this summer. Rebecca was finishing her gap year working at an outdoor centre in the wilds of Scotland. I shuffled to the kitchen in need of a mug of tea. While I waited for the kettle to boil, I took my bags upstairs to my room. Our house is an old terraced house, a contradiction, or rather Mum is. She keeps the house pristine and is always decorating some part of it, and yet she is one of the most chaotic people I know. She gets distracted from the task at hand as soon as she senses someone within a 10-mile radius might need her help. You never know who is going to be in the house. There's always something going on, and somehow she also keeps on top of running the campsite in the field behind our house. Yes, we own our own campsite, a place that has brought a lot of tension over the years. Mum worrying if it will survive another year, while simultaneously mothering every camper who stays in their field. And then there is the tension it brings between me and Mum. It can be frustrating sharing your mum with a campsite of strangers. Downstairs I carried my tea to the living room, then surfed the TV channels. Just as I was settling down with some mindless reality TV show, the door banged open and my solitude was disturbed. Joshua, my sometimes annoying, sometimes lovable brother, burst in with our dog Benji. No one is exactly sure what breed Benji is. There's definitely collie in the mix, but as to what else is there is anyone's guess. Benji rushed over, tail wagging, always eager for attention. "Does Mum need help?" I asked. Josh shrugged, clueless as usual. I pushed myself up from the sofa, then went to offer my services. "Naomi!" Mum came rushing over and smothered me in one of her massive hugs. So good to have you home. I'm sorry we couldn't come and get you. I tried wriggling out of her vice-like hug. It's fine, Mum. Aunt Susan and Uncle Bill were happy to rescue me from the halls of residence and store my meagre belongings for the summer. When I escaped from Mum's hug, I ducked around behind her to get to Gran, still sitting in the passenger seat of the car, watching all the commotion. I reached my arms cautiously around her. Gran, it's lovely to see you. How are you feeling? She looked tired and her smile didn't reach her eyes. I hope my expression didn't show my shock at how frail she looked. I love my Gran Betty. My looks with my chestnut hair and hazel eyes may be from Mum, but my personality and hobbies are more in line with Gran. Like me, she prefers a quiet house and her favourite pastimes are reading and knitting. Hopefully this summer we'll have plenty of opportunities to sit quietly together and knit or read. But in this house, that's doubtful. I forced my smile to stay in place. Aunt Susan told me to tell you she'll come and visit when she gets the chance. Mum bustled around me, opening the car door as wide as she could. That will be lovely to see Susan, won't it, Mum? Mum looked back at me. It's so handy that your aunt lives in Reading. I must call her later and thank her for helping out. Before I could respond that I had already thanked her myself, Mum was talking to Gran and working out how to get her from the car into the house. Naomi, if you stand at that side and I'll stand here and together we can help your Gran. Between us, we got Gran into the house and set her up in a winged back armchair. The one change to the house since my last visit. I guess Mum had sourced it from somewhere to give Gran the comfort and support she needed. While Mum emptied the contents of the car, I made a pot of tea. By the time it had brewed, we gathered in the living room around Gran, well, apart from Josh, who, according to Mum, was getting ready for a big date. I'm sure I would hear all about it later. But for now, it was time to catch up with Mum and Gran. Mum was full of news from the last few months, as if she's forgotten our regular video chats. Although there was something wonderfully comforting about hearing all the latest news from Sycamore Street and beyond. Mum told me about Lena booking a fabulous holiday and that Lena's niece Stephanie would be running the guest house while she was away. Then there was the news that number 8 had finally been sold after being on the market for a while. As soon as she began talking about Cara, our next door neighbour, and the 3 jobs she was currently juggling, Mum's head dipped to the side, shaking ever so slightly. Poor Cara, I knew what those mannerisms meant. Mum, please tell me you're not in Cara's business and mothering her. Mum shook her head. Of course not. But the glint in her eye as she drained the last of her tea told me otherwise. Now, I must be off. We've got some new campers arriving this afternoon. The living room was instantly quieter and calmer. I grinned at Gran. Would you like another cup of tea? She smiled and winked. Always. I returned with a fresh pot of tea. You must be happy to be out of hospital, I said. I am. It's a shame I'm not able to go back to my own house, but it's lovely to get this time with you. How are you? Typical Gran. She was the one in pain, recovering from an operation, and yet she was asking how I was. I'm disappointed, sad, embarrassed. Gran patted my hand. Oh, Naomi, things aren't that bad. Take it from someone who has a few more years' experience than you. You don't need to worry. God's got you and he knows exactly how you're feeling. I tried to smile, but I was thrown by Gran's curt summation of my life. I was out of character for her. I thought over her words. Being told not to worry gave me no comfort. Plus, it was hard to share the optimism she had in her faith. My heart and disappointment were too fresh. As I considered my response, I noticed Gran's eyelids flutter. She looked exhausted. Maybe her response was due to her tiredness. I took her teacup from her hands, concerned that she would fall asleep and drop it. Why don't you make the most of the quiet and get some rest? I'll keep you company and read. Gran smiled and adjusted her position as best she could. Do you need more pillows or a blanket? No, I'm fine, thank you. With Gran settled down to sleep, I I took my latest novel from my bag and lost myself in wartime England. Our house on Sycamore Street can never stay quiet for long. An hour later, with the noise levels increasing, I closed my book and sat it on the lamp table beside the settee, unable to concentrate. How on earth was Gran still sleeping? You would think, being a student, I would relish a noisy environment, but this was a different kind of noise. Mum was singing along to her beloved 1980s rock anthems, belting it out from the kitchen speaker while she prepared dinner. Joshua was shouting through the house, asking Mum where his favourite shirt was or where his new trainers were, and Benji kept barking every time he saw a bird at the bird feeder in the garden. Dad arrived home, slamming open the front door, his arms full of folders and magazines. They fell on the hall-wheel tiles with a clatter, his keys falling on top of the pile. He closed the door using his foot, then grinned at me, leaving the mess where it was. He stretched out his arms and marched towards me, pulling me up from the settee as he engulfed me in his arms. "Great to have you home, Naomi. It's never the same without you." I had to laugh at that one. As the quietest person here, I'm sure there have been many times when they've been unaware I'm in the same building as them. But still, it's nice to be told you're missed. Dad teaches administration and accounting at the local further education college. It sounds quite dull to me, but he enjoys it, for the most part. He says it gives him the perfect work-life balance, which is probably just as well, because it would have been truly awful to have two parents in and out of the house at all hours. As dinner time approached, the pungent aroma of spices coupled with the distinct smell of burnt mince pervaded the ground floor. When we took our first forkfuls of chili, we all coughed and reached for glasses of milk. At seeing Gran's flushed face, Mum admitted she had been distracted and had probably added 2 or 3 times the spices she should have. She's normally a good cook. Maybe today contained too many moving parts for even my mum to deal with. Dinner time conversation focused on Gran's stay in hospital and Dad's countdown until his long summer holidays. And then the question I was dreading. "So what happened with your exam?" asked Dad. "It's not like you to fail." I played with the unappetising food on my plate. Isn't there some kind of code that means parents aren't supposed to come right out and ask such questions? We were interrupted by Joshua sauntering into the kitchen. He grabbed a handful of Doritos from the middle of the table, then began munching on them as he pointed at me and laughed. "Imagine Naomi being the one to fail her exam. Hope that means you'll go easy on me when my results come through." I tried to swat him away, but he was always out of reach and running around to hug Mum before disappearing on his date. Gran sighed, then sent me a beautiful smile. "Don't you pay any heed to them, Naomi. Put it down to the emotional turmoil. You'll pass in August, and this will be nothing more than a blip." I returned her smile, then dipped my head, refusing to answer Dad and his rude question. A rhythmic tap played out on the kitchen door. Before anyone could shout, "Come in," my best friend Ellen entered. Childhood friends are the best. They can arrive at your house, walk straight in, give you a hug, then help clean up and tidy away dinner dishes. When we stacked the dishes into the dishwasher, Gran rose slowly from the table. Mum and Dad hovered behind her, looking like anxious parents watching their baby take its first steps. Poor Gran. I wasn't sure if staying at our house would give her the peace she needed, or if Mum and Dad would forever be hovering around her. Although it gave me the perfect opportunity to escape before anything else was said about my exam results. "Let's go for a walk," I suggested to Ellen as I closed the dishwasher. I tapped my leg. "Come on, Benji, time for a walk." It takes less than a minute to get from our house to the beach. Only Cleo's house stands between ours and the beach. Taking off our trainers, Ellen and I walked barefoot, letting the sand tickle our toes. I rolled my head from side to side, my neck and shoulder muscles relaxed, and a smile spread across my cheeks as I looked out to sea. Children's laughter carried along the beach, and the warmth of the summer evening wrapped around us. A gentle breeze filled our hair with salt air, my seaside hair, always so different to my city hair. The sky was a beautiful palette of blues, pinks and orange. We walked, not needing to speak, just enjoying the peaceful evening. We sat at our favourite spot near the lighthouse, wrapping our arms around our legs and laughing as we watched Benji play with the waves. "So how was your last semester?" I asked, leaning back on my elbows. "It was okay, pretty stressful at times, but I'm glad that's most of the studying over and done with." "Have you heard anything about where you'll get your probationary year?" "Not yet. I'm still waiting to hear." Ellen dug her toes into the sand. "I'm excited to put in a whole year of teaching, but I'm also kind of nervous about it. This is it, the start of the rest of my life. Am I ready?" "Of course you are, and you'll be brilliant, teacher. It was a career you were born to do." "I hope so," Ellen shrugged. "But enough about me. How are you?" I looked out at sea. "I don't know. Sometimes I feel okay, and then it hits me. How could I mess up so badly?" "You didn't mess up, Naomi. You had a horrible semester." Ellen drew me into a side hug. "But it sucks you need to study during the summer." I shrugged my shoulders. Yep. We sat in silence once again, watching the gentle waves rolling onto the shore. But after a few minutes, our peace was interrupted by my crazy mutt running from the water and shaking himself dry in front of us, and then he was off, racing towards the trees behind the beach. I jumped up and ran towards my wayward dog. "Benji!" I shouted. "Benji, get back here!" And as if I had any chance of him listening. "No, Benji!" I called as I saw the object of his chase, Malcolm the cat. Cara, our next door neighbour, took Malcolm in earlier this year, and ever since there had been a love-hate relationship going on between our dog and her cat. I'm convinced the evil cat winds Benji up, and Benji is stupid enough to race to the bait every time. By the time I reached the trees, Benji had abandoned the chase and instead had planted his paws on some guy's chest. As I glanced at the boy, I could feel the warmth of a blush threatening to spread across my face. Of course, Benji had brought me face to face with a ridiculously good-looking guy. My mouth was suddenly dry, and I had no idea what to say. Should I apologise for my dog's lack of manners? Or should I apologise for my inability to control my dog? Or could I blame it all on the cat? As I reached out and grabbed Benji by the collar, I recited the mantra, "Please don't blush, please don't blush," in my head. With the lid attached, I dared to look up. A smile of perfect white teeth grinned at me, and green eyes sparkled from under a floppy fringe of light brown hair. My blush defences were useless as I stuttered, "I'm so sorry about my dog. He doesn't normally jump up on strangers like that." The boy laughed and crouched down to Benji's head. "That's because we're not strangers. Isn't that right, Benji?" Who was this guy? How could he know my dog, but I didn't know him? Before I could find out, Benji caught sight of Malcolm and was pulling me off my feet in the direction of his mortal enemy.